Sky News host Chris Smith. Smithy, how are you?
Morning. Very well, thank you, Tim.
Well, it was nice and fiery in Canberra at the Rugby League. Ricky Stuart, of course, Canberra Raiders coach. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Have a listen to this grab and tell me what you think afterwards.
Fisher Harris, taps, they're accidents, and in this collision game, I understand that. But, where Salmon kicked Tommy, he ain't on. And I've had history with that kid. I know that kid very well. He was a weak-gutted dog as a kid, and he hasn't changed now. He's a weak-gutted dog person now.
Ricky referred to Jaeman as a weak-gutted dog. How do you respond to those comments?
I don't think I need to respond to those comments. I know what Jaeman's like, and you know what, he's valuable in our club and we love him, so that's all that matters to us.
We're going to hear a lot more of this story, I think, Chris.
Wow, you're telling a rugby league footballer, a young rugby league footballer, that as a kid he was a weak-gutted dog, and then as an adult he's now a weak-gutted dog? Like, talk about going over the top. Ricky Stuart has been in trouble before for getting way too emotional when referees have gone against the Canberra Raiders. So I have a feeling the NRL need to move on this. It's one thing to get stuck into a player for a bad piece of misbehaviour on the field. It's another thing to ruin his reputation as he did. That was a terrible personal slur that I think has been influenced by the fact that the Raiders got done.
Yeah, and then Ivan Cleary obviously didn't say much afterwards, but it's going to be spoken about, I would suggest, over the next 24 hours, those comments. Very raw. Now, let's have a look at this whole stadium thing. We are focusing a bit on sport, but there's been a lot of it, and the way that sport sort of straddles with politics, the whole stadium floods. What have you made of that in New South Wales? And ironically, no one was hurt, thankfully, but we saw a collapse at Leichhardt Oval just yesterday.
Well, this couldn't come at a worse time for the New South Wales government, which, as we know, you don't need to just be in New South Wales to understand that they're in a parlous state, the New South Wales government. They've got an election next March, which I'm telling you right now, they won't win. They can't win. They're a mess. They've been found out to have jobs for the boys, and even today, more jobs for the boys. And then they renege on this deal to fund stadiums across suburban Sydney, stadiums that are in a parlous state. And what happened yesterday? At a rugby match at Leichhardt Oval, one of the stadiums that should be updated and renovated, one of the sections of the railing leading on to behind the field collapses, and these people go face down into the concrete. Like, you don't need another reason to understand why these suburban grounds need refurbishing. Not only do we have a situation where they need to be updated, Tim, they're actually dangerous. Remember all that rubbish that went on, we've got to pull down the Sydney Football Stadium and build another one because it's a fire trap, it's so dangerous. Well, not as dangerous as Leichhardt Oval, as we saw yesterday. And this is where the New South Wales government have done themselves in again by reneging on the deal to help those small stadiums.
Well, for me, why wouldn't you, if you possibly can, say, OK, we're not going to build this thing out of Penrith, which is going to cost $300 million, and we are going to fix, at least essentially fix, grounds like this where yesterday, and you couldn't have timed it, thankfully, and that vision was shocking, wasn't it? Thankfully, no one was taken to hospital. But why wouldn't you just put a stop on that one and just say, let's go and do a bandage job anyway at these other grounds?
Well, the cynic might suggest, Tim, that it's because they want to feather bed the Liberal seats that they hold in Western Sydney, which is why they want to spend, what is it now? It's getting well over $300 million for a new stadium at Penrith, when I've got to say, it's not a bad facility, the Penrith Stadium, as it is. So why wouldn't you do exactly what you say? Spend $100 million spread out over 3 or 4 stadiums to refurbish them, to get them much more comfortable and safe, and forget about Penrith altogether. Well, you see, politics plays a part. They don't want to lose the seats that they're holding right now in Western Sydney. Well, I don't think it matters. They're so on the nose, the New South Wales Liberal Party, they've got no chance of winning in March.
OK, heading overseas, and there are shots of the stadium. It is a nice stadium as it is out of Penrith. The China situation, Nancy Pelosi, what do you make of all of that?
Yeah, I felt that America had no option but to go there. We can't have a situation where China dictates to the world what politicians are allowed to travel where, particularly when they want to travel to areas that are clearly not run and managed by the Chinese government. You can't allow that to happen. And I'm glad she turned up. Now, their overreaction is not only supercilious, but it's also dangerous. If you're, heading missiles over the top of Taipei into the economic zone, into waters just off Japan, you are risking a serious accident. And this is how wars start. An accident occurs, people die, and the other side counterattacks. This is what could happen with half a day to go. They say they're going to pull the plug on all of this at lunchtime today. Well, let's just hope that they do, and they don't create a platform to move into other exercises, which, as I say, can trigger a war, and the world does not need another war right now.
She's a polarising figure, Nancy Pelosi, but at 82 years of age, you can't help but think she's a very impressive individual.
Yeah, impressive in some ways, not impressive in other ways. She has not necessarily shone as Speaker of the House, but at the same time, I think what she's done here is made a point, put a line in the sand, and I think it's a good line in the sand. And I think she had no choice. Once we heard that that was an option, there was no way of pulling back. You can't be run and dictated to by the Chinese government, especially if you're a politician deciding where to visit. Like, it had to happen. America would have looked even weaker than it is right now if she hadn't have gone into Taipei.
Can South win the comp? I know I'm getting back to sport, but there's quite a bit about it. We're in the sort of the dying month of winter, and it's all about footy.
Oh, they played the Warriors yesterday. They remind me of the Eels. They're very much like the Eels in rugby league, Tim. They're both hot and cold. 1 minute they're on fire, they're world beaters, they're grand finalists, and the next minute, they just lose the plot. Look what they did against Cronulla last week. So I don't know. I'm not holding out too much hope, but, I might have a bet or two on the fact that they'll win the grand final. I might have one of those just sitting in my, my Ladbrokes app.
Yes, of course. And of course, they're calling them the flag pies. Collingwood have won 11 straight. I know that my brother in Melbourne, his family are big Collingwood fans, so they're getting fired up over that. Now, finally, Chris, a big show tonight for you.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a lot in reference to China, but also that I've got Mark Latham on. There's so much going on in New South Wales at the moment with the government, with jobs for the boys, with the evidence tomorrow by John Barilaro in that inquiry. So we'll talk all about that. But also to the Liberal Senator, Michaela Cash will be my special guest on the program as well, just after 6 o'clock.
Compulsory viewing, my friend. We will chat again next week.
Thank you, Tim.